fellow geeks. Welcome to Geeking Out, the podcast about all geeky aspects of software delivery, DevOps, observability, reliability, and everything in between. I'm your host, Adriana Vilela, coming to you from Toronto, Canada. And geeking out with me today, I have Parveen Khan. Welcome, Parveen.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I am so happy to have you on. And for those of you who've been following this podcast, you may remember that our precursor podcast was on Call Me Maybe with my former coworker Ana Margarita Medina, and Parveen was actually one of our early guests on Call Me Maybe, and I'm so happy to have her join me for Geeking Out this time around. And Parveen, where are you calling from today?
Yeah. Thanks again. Thanks again. Like I remember, I joined you last time when this podcast was there, and then again we are meeting back again. So it's awesome.
Yes.
I'm dialing from London. And yeah, I'm looking forward for a chat today. Geeking out,
Yay.
I would
All right.
say.
Yes. Yes, we will geek out on all things.
Yes.
And I should also mention too, like when we first connected through On Call Me Maybe, it was when I was doing a piece on how observability is not just for SREs. And it was actually inspired by a conversation that you and I had when you reached out to me on LinkedIn.
Yes.
And then I was so blown away by our conversation. I'm like, I have to write this down as a blog post. And then it turned
Yes.
into this like whole thing, and it was just amazing. And so many awesome things came out of that conversation. So I'm very
Yeah.
grateful that we had a chance to meet.
Yeah, absolutely. It was more of an intersection between quality and observability, and that conversation. Yes, absolutely.
That's right. That's right. Well, we'll dig into that shortly, but first, let us start with our icebreaker questions. Okay, first
Hmm.
question. Are you a lefty or a righty?
I'm a righty.
Okay, next question. Do you prefer iPhone or Android?
Android.
Do you prefer Mac, Linux, or Windows?
I was a very Mac person, but now I'm okay. Like Windows, fine. Like I'm a very
Yeah.
Mac person. Yes, I prefer
Which one
Mac.
do you end up using for work, out of curiosity?
Windows.
by,
Yes,
by choice or required by job.
required by job. Yes.
Fair
Yeah.
enough. Fair enough.
If it was by choice, I would say Mac, please.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Okay, next question. Do you have a favorite programming language?
Yeah, I used to love working with Java. That's my first favorite and forever favorite language, which I
Ooh.
learned, and I used to work and I used to enjoy writing programs on it. And like I think Selenium, back in those days when I used to use Selenium, I think Java was my preferred language. And then I think a lot of other tools came in where you kind of like use different languages like JavaScript, TypeScript, but I think Java is my favorite programming language.
Awesome. Okay, next question. Do you prefer dev or ops?
Uh, I prefer DevOps, like both together.
Ooh, love it. Love
Yes.
it. Okay, next one. Do you prefer JSON or YAML?
Tough one. Okay. I think I prefer JSON.
JSON? All right.
Yeah, I prefer JSON. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Do you prefer spaces or tabs?
Huh.
I'm not making it easy, am I?
Uh, tab. Yes, tab. Maybe yes, tab.
All
Prefer
right.
tab. Yes.
All right. Two more questions left. Do you prefer to consume content through video or text?
Through text. I love reading, and
I'm
I
with
feel
you.
like it's
Love
handy.
text.
Yeah. Like
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
want to like hear video, then you have to be prepared, like carry your headphones and all that stuff. So like text is like You can open up everywhere, anywhere, read. I love reading.
I agree. And distraction free. I get very
Yeah.
distracted when I watch video.
Yeah, I'm not a good listener, I guess. Like that's how I feel. Like I can't listen. I can't. Yeah, I can't listen to longer time, but I can read for as long as I can.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. I found the only way that I can do video, like especially for learning, is either I'm like walking around the house listening to the video, so like a podcast,
Yeah,
or if I'm like distracted, so I have like a treadmill in my home office and a bike in my home office. So I'm like, if I'm doing one of those things, then it keeps my brain distracted enough that I can like concentrate on the video more
yeah,
than if I was just sitting there.
yeah, yeah. Is it? I can't like. I feel like I'm just doing one thing. Like, yeah, it just makes me like I can't concentrate for a longer time if it's a video.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. It's hard. It's hard. Okay,
yeah.
final question. What is your superpower?
Superpower. Um, Superpower is I feel like I'm a very I'm very open to learning always, and I ask for help. I don't shy away. Like, I don't feel like, oh, like what if like people think like, what if they say no to me? What if uh like, people think that I don't know this? So I think I'm like, this is my superpower. This has helped me a lot in my career, I guess. Like, when I just reach out to people. I think I feel like I'm lucky enough in that sense. Like, I reach out to people, like, and I ask, like, I can reach out and I say, hey, you know what, I love reading your article. Do you have a few minutes? I want to really chat with you. It's like I just ask away people and I get time to speak to people. I think I feel like asking help is my superpower.
That is amazing, and it's the perfect segue into our conversation. And I can't underscore enough like how important it is to ask for help. You make such an excellent, excellent point because we can, it's so easy too. I think as you get more senior in your career, and people look up to you as being the one with all the answers, and
Yeah.
I think we need to get out of this mindset of not being the ones with all the answers. It's okay
Yes.
to not be the one with all the answers and to stop being shy, scared,
Yes.
to say, I don't know that. Like, I'll even do stuff like, I'm sorry, dumb question. Can you explain this to me?
Yes. 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 Absolutely. And I think somewhere, like, if you have that any kind of title or something, you feel like, oh my god, people will think that, yeah, like people, like, you need to know everything. No, it's not. Like, I feel like it's never. It's more about asking away those questions, asking away for help, and saying that, you know what, I might not know this. Like, maybe let's brainstorm, let's understand what this is. And it's always about working, like, it's not all about you knowing everything and you telling people, right? It's all about how can you get different perspectives and how can you get different solutions to it. Because if you are the only one knows everything, then it's kind of like always everything is going to work in the same way of how you think about it, and then you will never have other perspectives, and you will never get to get more creative solutions to the problems that you're working on in the team.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree, and that's why it reminds me of like when how you and I met, right?
Yes.
You reached out to me on LinkedIn. I think you read
Yes.
one of my articles on observability, and you're like, "Hey, I just want to have a chat,"
Yes,
and we had
exactly.
it was such a great chat. Like as I said earlier in the recording, like you inspired me so much through our conversation because you opened my eyes to new possibilities that I hadn't considered before. And I think that's what tech is all about, is like being open-minded, because we can't evolve without the open-mindedness, especially in technology.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. That, yeah, see, that's the amazing thing, right? Like, I get to meet, like, one little, like, drop a message, or like, asking away. I think you get a lot of people, you build your network. And I think right now, again, these are the cool topic, right? Like, networking is
Yeah,
so, 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 so important right now. And networking doesn't mean that you have to meet, or like, it's not about meeting in person only. It's more about how do you build those connections, how do you build that support system, and it's not about like help in the sense, like it's about how can you learn from each other, how can you support each other,
Yeah.
how can you uplift each other. I think it's so important. So I think until unless you speak, until unless you reach out, until unless you take that first step, it's never possible. Like, you never know whom to get connected. Like, or if you wait for an opportunity, or if you wait for attending a conference only, then it becomes like very limited scope for you to build that network, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's not you. People can't shouldn't you shouldn't wait, as you said. You shouldn't wait for people to come to you.
Yeah.
You have to go to them. And I want to point out also like something that you did when you reached out to me on LinkedIn, which I thought was like, I think this is the way that should be done because I'm sure like me, you probably get tons of connection requests on a regular basis, and a lot of the times I'm like like I don't know who you are, like,
Yeah.
and like I have zero context. And I remember when you reached out to me, you had like a very specific purpose. So like in your connection request, you explained why it is that you wanted to connect. And I find those connection requests a lot more meaningful. And it reminds me also of like I I mentored someone a number of years ago, and I became his mentor. I don't know how he found me on LinkedIn, but he
Mm,
reached out to me on LinkedIn and he's like, "Hey, I would love it if like I could be if you could be my mentor." And I thought it was like, first of all, like that he just reached out to me out of the blue, but it
yeah.
was like such a thoughtful message on
Yeah.
LinkedIn, and like it seemed genuine. Just like when you reached out, it seemed genuine. So like I will respond to those types of messages,
Yeah.
um like these genuine requests, conversations where you're like, yeah, we can form a relationship. And like some
Yeah.
lovely things have come out of me mentoring him. Some lovely things have come out of us connecting. And
Yes.
I think that's so important is how you approach people when you're going to connect with them, because nobody wants to just like, hey, connect with me.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I learned this from one of the course that was given by, I don't remember their name, but at ThoughtWorks when I was working about the social medias, like especially about the LinkedIn. And I think since then, like I think I've started using, like I realized that, oh yeah, like when you send a connection request, it's more about why do you want, like it's not about telling why do you want to connect, but something like you might have got like something relatable, or like you want to build a network because you share the same topic, or there might be some connection, right? So you might have, like, I feel like taking that extra effort of writing that note feels like you really want to connect. It's not just a click button saying that send request and send it with, like, it's not about that. It's more about, like, this person, or you have read this person's article, or like, you've enjoyed doing like something, like, you just mentioned that. And since then I think this is the practice that I've tried maintaining myself whenever I send a connection request to anyone. Like, if I want to get connected, there is a specific reason why I want to be connected, because they might be sharing some content which I want to be learning from them. So staying in, like, I want to see their posts, so either I follow based on that, or I either send and I write that note specifically. And same thing, like when I get a connection request with a message there, I'm like, wow, they took some time to write that, like, whatever that could be, like, even if it's like I would like to connect because I want to grow my network, even that little thing, I feel like, okay, they have taken some effort to write, so which means they really want to connect, so let me just say yes is how I go.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And then it also made me think of like I've also gotten some connection requests which I thought were honestly like kind of annoying and insulting. Where like they've bothered to write the nice connection message, and then you connect with them, and then they immediately send you a message like, "Hey,
Yeah.
thanks for connecting. By the way, check out my product." Oh, and I'm like,
Yes. Oh yes.
dude, and I'm sorry, but like I will remove that connection right away because
I
I'm
have had
sorry, but
this.
that's just offensive. That's just
Yes.
offensive. Like
Yes, yes.
I'm just
Yeah.
being used. No, no. Like at least try to develop a rapport first if
Yes,
you
yes.
if you want me to even consider looking
Yeah.
at your thing, which there is
Yeah.
no guarantee.
Absolutely. Forced messages, I know. Like, if I don't respond to one message, it's like, okay, I don't want to continue. That's the message. But then, yeah, I know. If you connect, Yeah, I've had these people, a lot of people where they kind of sell the services or like sell the product. It's like, I'm fine with that. If you try once and message and share that this is where it is, and if I'm really interested, I want to get back to you. But then you shouldn't be chasing again and again. That will absolutely lose my interest in what you're trying to sell more
Oh yeah,
than taking a look at it.
oh yeah, especially the ones that are kind of they're trying to make you feel guilty, like, oh, clearly my message hasn't resonated with you, and I'll
Yeah.
leave you alone, but just reply to tell me that you're not interested. It's like, buddy, I've
Yes.
ignored your last four messages because you're being forceful and annoying. Do you think
Yes.
I'm going to reply to this now?
I know. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Take note, people. The right way to connect versus the wrong way. So yeah. But when I want to go back a little bit because when you and I met, I think you mentioned you were working at ThoughtWorks before.
Yeah.
You were in a QA individual contributor role. That's correct.
Yeah. I was more of a consultant. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So and now you've switched jobs recently, or how recently have you, definitely
It's been
since we
a
last
year. Yeah, it's been a year. Yeah, it's been like a year and a month, couple of months. But
Okay.
yeah, I've joined as a quality practice lead. It's a insurance based like company, CFC. So we are pretty much insurance heavy people like company. So yeah, I'm working as a quality practice lead. So it's a transition between like working as a consultant, going on to different clients and helping them, and now it's more about like yeah, as a quality practice lead working across the department and with all, across the organization to um, help them build the quality practices, quality processes, and it's more about how do we think about quality throughout. It's a lot more about how do we. It's more about influencing and get driving quality through, and by different approaches, whether it's people, tool, or processes, you name it, anything based on anything. Like you can, maybe you're trying to influence, you're trying to like help them to see. It's kind of like headlights, like showing the light of how to build quality and think about quality and what do you need to do, why do we need to do that on a higher scale is what I can say. Yeah.
Cool. So it's basically been two big transitions for you, which is one out of consulting, which I worked as a consultant for 4 years. I can definitely appreciate, like, it's definitely a mindset shift from always like working for different clients to like now you're just working basically at the same client
Yes.
effectively.
Yes. Yes.
And then moving into like a leadership position, which
Yeah.
also like is a big, it can be a shock to the system as well if you're used to being like an individual contributor. So yeah, what I guess, let's do this as a two-parter. What was how did it feel going from consulting to basically working in non-consulting, and then part two, what are we can talk about like the transition into a leadership role.
Yeah. Before working as a consultant at ThoughtWorks, so before that, I used to work for companies. So I've always like mostly on the startups as well. So I've always loved seeing like the whole transformation of the product, of like how we started building the product and how it has been gone live, where people have been using. So I used to always love that journey, seeing that journey, and me being part of that. And then I joined ThoughtWorks, where I wanted to explore different domains, different. It's more to say like you want to work at different companies, but still you are part of one company. So that's how I see that as. And then I was like,
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
really
yeah, yeah.
interesting. Yeah, it was really interesting to explore so many different domains that I got to work with, like and it was um, those challenges, it kind of helped me build my tool set, my skill set. So it's like it's more about like facing all those challenges and working with so many smart people. Like ThoughtWorks, they have like amazing consultants. Like you get to, again, like, you get to, it's not about just going there and working for clients, but the access that you get to the smartest people whom you can talk to, and you can learn from them. And so that was even more valuable for me. So I think that experience has taught me a lot, in terms of how, as a consultant, you go at a completely new place where you don't know, like, it's not even your team, not even your product, but then how do you go there and and start from day one? How do you start making changes? Like, it's like, because when you work at a company, it's like a slow paced, even the company is
Yeah.
fast moving, but then when you actually work, it's a slow pace. But when you, as a consultant, it's like, it's not, you won't get a 2-year contract or 4-year contract, right? You just get, like, you need to start, like, you need to make changes, like, you need to show your impact from day one. So I think that has taught me a lot. Like, it was a really valuable things that I've got from. Um and then I just wanted to be come back. Like, I was more like, yeah, it's not to say that I've learned everything, but I've learned enough that I've built my own tool set, I've built my own skill set, and now I want to use those somewhere, in a company where, I want to see the whole journey, the whole transition, and apply all those. So that's where, when I came across this opportunity, when they reached me out, I was like, oh, quality practice lead. This is really interesting, because as like, I'm always passionate to, like, help people, like, join teams and help them, talk, like, advocate about quality. That's my favorite
Yeah.
thing. you know so, and they were looking for this, and I was like, oh yeah, why not, let me, like, and I really loved it. And now it's more, yes, the transition is like, it's more about, it's like, you are not doing it actually, but how do you get people do what you want to do?
Mm,
It's like,
yeah.
it's like, yeah, in simple terms, I think that's what it is. Like, you are not doing it, but then how do you get people to do it? How do you build that trust, that people will trust you, what you're saying, and they will join you in your journey? And how do you, and trust, and then credibility, right? How do they know that they should believe what you're saying is right? Like, and that's where your I feel like, that's where your personal brand comes in as well, and that's where
Yes.
what you put out yourself out there comes, very handy, I guess. And all of these, I think it becomes more of like, okay, how do you work with the teams where they trust you, and you're trying to solve the challenges, and they support you? And then how do you get a buy-in from the leadership to say that this is the right challenge that we have to solve? How do you pitch in, like, that this is the priority right now, because you can't do everything at the same time, so you need to pick.
Yeah.
And when you join a company, when you see from a fresh perspective, you'll see many problems, or
Yeah.
not even a problems, maybe some gaps, or maybe they're doing certain things and you want to, there's more room for improvement as well. And
Yeah.
you'll see many things, right? And then you can't just go like, oh, let's work on all of this. So you have to pick what. So it's more about like, start thinking how do you start thinking about how do you pitch that this is more important, and how do you prove that this will work? This is, like, this is, like, it's about goal, like,
Yeah.
KPIs, and how
Yeah.
do you metrics, like, and then two layers, and it's kind of like you're in the middle, like, and then your team working on it, like, trying to, and how do you support them? So I think it's, yeah. So this is a difference,
There's a lot of dimensions to it,
yeah,
basically.
yeah,
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 and you touched on like so many interesting things. And I think the first one that I want to touch on is you mentioned, like when you're working as a consultant, you basically have to hit the ground running. You have to be
yeah,
productive from day one, and as you said, so different than when you join like a company, where you have like that ramp up time. And I'll bet you mentioned that you worked in startups previously as well. I'll bet that startup experience helped you a lot with the
yes,
consulting side of things in terms of the hit the ground running thing.
yes,
Um,
yes,
which yeah, I mean, it's daunting, it's exciting, especially when you're younger, like that go 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 mentality. Then you hit an age where you're like, okay, I could just like take a little bit of time to breathe.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good point great point you made, because of course, like when you're working in a startup, it's like you have to wear so many different hats. You know, more doing one thing at a time, and because speed, always delivery and speed is the priority. Quality takes the back seat always.
Yes, yes.
And then that's where I think, the challenge is like, how do you bring that up? How do you keep your resilience in such way that you just don't give up, like, you just keep trying. And how do you try to solve the same problem by talking in a different way each time? I think that helped a lot in consultancy, like, when you go there. I think it's another layer on top of it to say that, okay, like, this is fast moving. But I think it was with ThoughtWorks, it was so good that it was like they already had that the relationship built with the consultancy, the name itself. And then when you go there, the people used to already have the trust in you, so that made
Yeah.
a little easier to jumpstart the journey there. Yeah,
That's good. Yeah, because I mean, as you said, that can be like building up that trust can be really tricky because especially when you come in as a consultancy into an organization, there's going to be the skepticism. What are they
yeah,
trying to do? Are they trying to like rattle things
yeah.
around? And then as a consultant, you have to be so careful and not come in and say everything's crap
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah,
otherwise
exactly.
people
Yeah,
get offended, right?
yeah, absolutely. And you'll feel like you're always an outsider, but
Hmm.
so many like clients that I've worked with being at ThoughtWorks, I think I've never felt that. It was always like we are part of the team, because we
Oh, that's great.
always worked as, yeah. So that's another thing. Like that, I think that kind of, again, this is where, right, your credibility and the trust both goes so hand in hand that it will help in smoother collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's the aspect of like the company's credibility, which helps.
Yeah,
And then like your personal credibility helps as well. And
yeah,
then I'll bet then that translates quite nicely when when you switch jobs, having had that consulting experience of like
yeah,
you come in. I mean, everyone's a problem solver, but I feel like the consultant is like that kind of problem solver plus plus plus. Like you're always kind of looking at it, you're assessing the situation
yeah,
holistically, right? And I feel like coming in to an organization from a consultancy background, you probably have that extra, like bit of advantage where you can come in, assess the situation, be sure not to tell them that their baby is ugly because so they don't get offended.
yeah, 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 absolutely. Yes, it's more like, yeah, I think I see that as it's more like when you actually working for a long, long years, or even if you're a year or a couple of years, you kind of get
Yeah,
blinded. So it's like when someone comes in with, and they're kind of wearing a fresh pair of like perspective glasses, I would say, in that sense.
yeah,
And then it's more about like evolving what you have done. So because like software development, right, or quality development, DevOps, everything, it's always like, it's never like once you have built something, processes, or you have bought some tool, it's going to be forever, right? It's evolving all the time. It has to evolve all the time. We have to always innovate, whether it's like, whether be it process, whether be it tool, or whether it be with the way we're working, right, ways of working.
yeah,
So it's the same thing, like, new people come in, and they bring their own expertise, they bring their own experience, they bring their own ideas. And it might not always be that the companies might be having a lot of problem, which is why they're trying to bring the change, but it might be more that they are coming with the fresh perspective, and they're coming with more, because you've been in that situation, like in the same context for so long, that you'll kind of like, you get used to it, so you kind of sometimes miss that. So someone coming in, so they kind of come with fresh perspective and come up with more new ideas to improve.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. I love that. And it's funny because I'm kind of experiencing the same thing because I switched jobs in November, And so part of it is like I'm getting to know like the company's product, and realizing like all these things that it does that I didn't know it did. And
Mm,
so, I'm like, as I learn more stuff, I'm like, oh my God, tell me more about this, tell me more about that, and trying to understand. Like, I think, coming in from fresh perspective, um, you can't help but wonder, like, okay, why is something designed this way? Have you thought about that
yeah,
way? And then when I think if you approach it like asking thoughtful questions, like people are so much more open to hearing your suggestions,
yeah,
rather than like if you came in and started accusing them of
yeah,
like you did this wrong.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
just come in and ask questions and just try to understand. And I think like that's so important.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Now, going back to the leadership thread, you mentioned like it can be really challenging, like in being in a leadership position, because you're trying to influence the change. You're not necessarily in a position where you're doing the thing. You have to get people to do things for you, which can be really hard if you're a very hands-on person and super type A, likes to take things in their own hands. So, like for you, how is there anything that you can draw from your past that prepared you for your current experience in leadership?
Yeah, I think again going back to the consultancy experience, right? So when we work as a consultant, when we go on to the client, it's always we have this in our head that okay, we are working, we are trying implementing new processes, or we are trying new ways to work. But I used to always think that I'm going to leave this place, so I have to write as much as I can. I have to share as much as I can, and I have to not. So it's more about like knowledge sharing all the time, and how do I make myself
Mhm.
like replaceable, like, or redundant, or
Yeah,
however you call it as like. And for that,
yeah,
you just need to create all like just keep sharing. So I used to do that, right? So that
yeah,
has kind of helped me in a way that okay, there will be moments where you want to be like, oh, let me just do it by myself, like let me just do it myself. It will be like,
yeah,
it feels like okay, it's more about like how do you coach others to do the same thing. How do you help them, how do you support them, because uh, it's not about how faster can you get things done, right? It's about like how do you create many leaders while you are working in a team. It's more about how do you get many people who can drive, who can lead as well. It's more about that. So if you keep doing if you keep getting into that zone of like let me just get it done, I think then you will never be able to achieve. I think sometimes we go into that zone, right? Like it feels like, oh,
yeah,
let me, if I'm doing it, it might be faster, but then
yeah,
for
yeah,
now it might be faster, but then if that comes up, if the same challenge or same problem you're trying to solve again, then you will be the only one who's going to solve it if you're not getting others to do that, or like that's the thing, right? And again, I think that experience has helped me, like because as a consultant, I knew that I would leave this place.
yeah, yeah,
And I'm coming here not to just solve the problem for them for right now, and when I leave, they should be back in the same position. No, right? So they have to
yeah,
continue with what we have implemented. They have to continue with what we have built. Otherwise, then there's no point. If that was the case, then if that was the case, then we would always be working at a one client forever, right?
yeah,
That's not the point. So you have to create in like in such way that even when you leave, those things continue. Not everything, but at least few basic things are continued. So in that mindset, that approach is kind of helping me every
yeah.
time I try to think like let me just do it, let me get it done.
Yeah, yeah, that's so clever. That's an excellent, excellent approach, and it's so funny because I think a lot of people here, like, when it comes to management, delegate, 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 and it seems
Yeah.
like such a simple, like, it's a simple piece of advice. It's so
Yes.
true. You
Yeah.
absolutely have to do it, but it also means that you have to trust that your
Yes.
teammates will, you have to trust them to do the thing. You basically can't be the helicopter parent around your teammates,
Yes.
which can be really hard. And sometimes, and I think it becomes especially hard if you have some people who need to be, as you said, coached, to learn, to develop certain skills. So it's not just like learning how to do the thing, but also developing the skills, to be more, like, be more independent. Because I
Yeah.
think, it's really tough sometimes. Like, I've had people work for me that they're just waiting for me to tell them what to do, and I'm like, I cannot just sit here and babysit you. Like, that is not your job to be babysat by me, and it's not my job to babysit you. Like, you know like,
Yeah.
you need to be more independent. And
Yeah.
it's really hard. Like, it's so easy when you have, like, the direct reports who are like, giddy up, I'm gonna do all the things, and you're
Yeah.
like my star child. Please do keep doing your awesome stuff. But it's so hard when you have, the folks who are, like, they need nudging. And there's, like, cases where, like, you can help them grow, and I think it's lovely when that happens. And then there are the cases where it's like, this is not a fit. And you need to figure out how to deal with that as well,
Yeah.
because it's gonna be so
Yeah.
stressful.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think you'll get all the combinations, right? Yeah, like
I know,
you
right?
get it. Like, yeah, you. I think when you that's where, like, when you're working, I think not everybody's different. Everybody's skill set is different, and everybody's like their approach towards learning is different. Their approach towards career is different. So everybody is very different. And then when you get when you have to work with them, then you have to take different approaches when you're talking to them. When you it's like you cannot like you like I feel like you'll be surprised, like, it's not about always like you have to coach them, but sometimes it's more about like giving them the problem so that they find the solution by themselves, so that independent might help them as well. So it's more
Mhm.
about everybody having different needs, and how do it takes a lot of time to understand whose working style is what, and who likes
Yes.
doing what. And for that you need to let them see. I think that takes a lot of time. Yes, I agree, like, and then there again you'll end up having some people who really want to, like, yeah, as you said, babysit, right? Like, who really want instructions, but then some people might be like, I don't need instructions. You just give me the problem, I'll go and find the solution, and you tell you. So I think there are different skill sets, you'll get that different combination. And then maybe that's where when you're working in the company, then you'll have different problems, and you'll know, oh, this is the problem, so I feel like this person is really good fit to put that person in there. So I think, yeah, I think learning about the people, learning about their style, and you'll be surprised. I feel like many times, like, like they have already so much skill set that they might not even need coaching, but only just the direction and opportunities so that they can grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And to feel acknowledged and listened, because I think,
Yeah.
it's funny because you don't want, like, the micromanaging manager, but you
Yeah.
also don't want the manager who's, like, so hands off. You're like, please pay attention to me. Please love me. Because then
Yeah.
that can be motivating as well, right? Because you're like, well, what am I doing this for then,
Yeah, yeah, and I think that reminds me, like, yeah, and also feedback, right? Like feedback.
Mhm.
I'm a very feedback person, and I think that's where, like, giving feedback, asking for feedback. I mean, again,
Yeah.
if it's for myself, like asking, but I think if people, like, giving them feedback. And when I say feedback, it's not about just saying improve things, but it's more about whenever they have done some amazing work, uh, praise it in public, like,
Yes.
that motivates a lot
Yeah.
as well. Yeah, these few things, I think I'm getting into these things of like, okay, I'm a person, I like taking feedback, I like asking feedback, but not everyone could be the same. So
Yeah.
it's about building that contract. Like I've learned this recently in one of the workshop that I attended about leadership, is about like you sitting and like you talking to each other and building that contract of like,
Yeah.
okay, what do you expect from me, and what like and what do I expect from them, and how do you like communicating, and like how do you like taking feedback, how do you want me to do, like, it's all about that, setting that boundaries and setting that relationship contract so that it works both ways, because then it doesn't become like the expectations are different, then that will create a lot of misunderstanding, and then yeah.
Yeah, I that's so clever, having this concept of a contract, and that basically every person that you're working with will have like a different contract because of
Yeah.
the different ways that they work. Which,
Yeah.
but I yeah, that is such a clever idea. And I think you mentioned also like you've done some like leadership workshops, and I think that's so important as well. Like in one of my early leadership roles, I got sent to like leadership training, and it was definitely like it was really valuable. At first, I'm like, oh, what do I need leadership training for? But it's like it's really valuable. They teach you like important things, like they
Yeah.
make you aware of things that you weren't necessarily aware of. Like I remember we had to do like role playing on like having difficult conversations, and it's so hard, and you have to like broach it in a way that you don't end up like hurting someone's feelings, because like ultimately like having a difficult conversation can lead to hurt feelings, especially if the other person's like thinking that they're doing fine and you're like, no,
Yeah.
you're not.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how do you communicate that effectively so that you see their perspective and vice versa?
No, absolutely. I think I've really learned that there's no one book, or there's no like one way or the other way to do leadership. It's like you have your own style, you have your own like way. Like leadership is all about like, how do you want to drive people, like, how do you want to, how what is your style, like, there's no, I feel like all these workshop help to like, like see different perspective, to learn how others think. And there are like, again, there are many things, just like how you mentioned, right? Like learning about conflict resolutions, or learning about feedback giving, or learning about how do you delegate, like all this stuff, like, and these are all small, it's more like a lot of different ingredients that you mix, it becomes its own flavor, right? Whatever you mix, that's your flavor. So leadership is more, I feel like, personally, like in my experience, I feel like everyone has their own style, the way, their own approach. There's no one way or the other way, and there's no guideline or book that this is leadership and everyone has to do this way. So it's more about how do you find your balance of how do you want to
Yeah.
drive. It's more about your own style, like, because people are like different, like, that's what, like, there are introverted people, there are extroverted people, everyone has their own personalities, and then how do they bring their authentic self into this leadership, and how do they build that, and how do they help companies and the people. I think that's really completely different way of doing it.
Yeah, yeah, and I want to dig into that a little bit more, where you mentioned like bringing your authentic self to work, because I think like as in a leadership position, I think it is the responsibility of the leader to create a safe workspace
Yeah.
for employees, and where you can, and there's nothing worse than not being able to bring your authentic self to work, because you're just not going to get everything out of the people working with you, right?
Yeah.
Because they're not going to feel like they can bring 100%, like put 100% of themselves into the work.
Yeah.
um yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think, yeah, it's just being you, right? Your authentic self is like
Yeah.
you being yourself, whether you are an introverted person, whether you are an extroverted person, it's you, it's your person. Like, I'm a very introverted person, by the way. So it's more about like you just being yourself. And because how long, like, if you're trying to be someone else, I think it will drain, like it will drain you
Oh yeah,
completely. If you are a
totally.
person who is not comfortable doing certain things, it's fine, like, this, just accept it. Everyone has their own different strengths and different weakness, right?
Yeah,
Like it's hard to say, I know, like, you go through those imposter syndrome where you kind of go
oh
through
my
in the
god.
weakness points, always not the strengths, but
Yeah, yeah,
trying the best, right? Like, I think
yeah,
I
totally.
was writing this in my own reflection blog recently, like where I write every year, right? I was saying that how useful my own brag document was last year whenever I was going through these moments of like, okay, no, I'm fine. Like, it's just yeah, yeah, I know I went on to that, but I think it's just being yourself, no matter what kind of personality you have. I think that kind of helps. And then, yeah.
And what have you done, like, with your own team in terms of helping them, giving them that safe space and allowing them to be their authentic selves?
Um, yeah, I hope yeah, they see this, but I think I try myself is like try to listen to them. The first thing, like like not to judge what they're saying. This is the
Yeah,
thing. Make sure that they feel that I'm not judging what they're saying, and listening is the first thing I would say. Like,
yeah,
I would listen to them and acknowledge the feelings. Like, okay, if they're feeling that way, it's true. So it's creating that space of like, you can come to me, you can reach me out, and you can talk to me and you can share, if whether it's like about the ideas, or whether you're feeling frustrated about certain things that are not working in certain way. Like, being approachable, like me being approachable is one
yeah,
of the way, and I think that takes a little, like, lot of time, right, for people to understand that I'm approachable, right? So I think it
yeah,
needs that creating many instances where you have given that examples that people can reach you, that you are approachable, and then they can talk to you. So I think that's one way. And like, for me, like, I would say, like, never counting, like, pointing out a failure maybe, or like,
yeah, yeah,
it's not a failure, but it's about like the learnings, like,
yeah,
something
yeah,
is not working this way, like, how do we improve, what do we do? So it's
yeah,
about having those kind of conversations and motivating and supporting, making sure that they feel that like they are supported enough, no matter
yeah.
how and what they do, is one of the way, like, yeah, these are the few ways I try.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, 'cause, like, like, 2 really important points you made was being approachable, and I think that's so important. I remember, like, the last team that I managed, like, it took a while to kind of build up that rapport with my direct reports, because 'cause they'd be like, can I be myself?" So I'm, like, trying to, like, be relaxed, like, be relaxed around them so that they feel relaxed around me, and hopefully, like, hopefully that puts them at ease, and I think, as you said, being approachable is so,
Yeah.
so important. Yeah. That's great. I want to also just quickly talk a little bit about, like, your role, because you said, like, you're doing work around, like, setting, like, QA, like, quality strategy, right? Um, so then it's another aspect of leadership where it's not just like you're not just leading, like, you're not just managing your team, but you're also, like, influencing an entire organization. And how has that been?
Yeah, it's been great. It's been good. It's been great, actually, because I think sometimes you need people who actually believe in quality to be able to do these things. So I'm glad, like, everybody here that I work, everybody's like, what can we do to, like, the quality is one of the topic that is most spoken as well. So I think that's like, I feel like that's half of the battle is won, kind
Yeah,
of a feeling. And then it becomes more like, okay, now how do you break down into smaller things, of like, how do you different things? So this is where I try to, like, not just focus on one thing. Like, I'm like, I tried, like, okay, talking about how can we maybe do some experimentation or any kind of new ways of approaching things, but talking in a different way, like I've also tried to create not tried, but I've created a community, quality community, so that it's about giving the same, talking about the same thing in a different forums, in a different way, so that people can understand it. And it also means that it's not only me talking about quality and in the way I'm talking about, but it's more about how thought leaders outside are also it's the same approach. So bringing so doing those sessions, bringing that has helped us a lot, like bringing people from speakers and bringing them in and letting them do the sessions more relevant to what we are trying at our company. And it kind of like it's more about, again, it goes back to how do you advocate, how do you talk about quality, how do you push like in anything and everything that you do where it is needed, and how do you keep talking about it in the right place, in the right time, with the right people, and then show the changes. In it doesn't have to be very big ones, right? If you have like small changes, small step at a time, and once people see that it is working for them, it is helping them, they will follow that, so I think that's how I've been, like it's not big bang all at once, let's do everything at once, but it's been more about nothing to do with more innovative tools or anything. Like it's all about, sometimes, like it's all about going back to the basics, and going like doing fundamental things help speed up. So I think I'm still like it's there's a lot to do yet, here yet, but I think it's been good. It's been good in the sense of like trying small steps at a time and doing little things, changes at a time. And sometimes when things keep fast moving, then there are challenges. We have to, based on the context of which initiatives we are working on, we just have to uh, change our approach in certain ways. So it's been adaptable. So adaptability is another thing, right? So it's more about trying to take small steps and adapting to where what you're doing, and showing people examples, and then bringing people in. So there are multiple ways of doing talking about it in a different way. I think that's how I've been doing here. Yeah, of course, yes. I mean, um it's I do talk about this in the sense, is like when we talk about quality, right? Like especially cross functional requirements is where this observability comes in. And it's even like how it's more relevant even when you're actually working with systems where so much backend, it's more backend focus. So it becomes even more, the more back end focus it is, the more visibility you need it, right? And that's where the observability comes in. So I think I still like, yeah, that's a topic, I think. And I do encourage people, like, it's not about just same message again, it's nothing new message, but still I think it still applies the same message, that it's not about just implementing the logs, it's about testing them, seeing if they are meaningful. How do you check that? Because it's more easier to shift this to the left than to release it and then realize, oh, we need some more logs, and go back and add more. So it's much more harder then. So it's much more easier to spend some time to do, implement it and do the testing. And so these simple things, I still talk about this, yes. Yeah, yeah, yes, yes.
Well, we're coming up on time, but before we wrap up, I was wondering if you have any parting words of wisdom that you would like to share with our audience.
Ooh, yeah. Not wisdom, but it's like, yeah, it's more like, I would say 2025, right? We all like, this is my first 2025 podcast. It's more like, yeah, this year for me myself is more about like, how do you be yourself, be open to your like, keep your mind open to learning, no matter at what stage or what level you are on, and be open to ask those questions in any forum. And like, yeah, learning is constant, like, it's a continuous process, and keeping consistency is another word that I'm trying to stick to this year. We'll see. So yeah, doing anything consistently, like sticking to the, when I say consistently, doesn't mean that you have to do it every day, but you know when you do something consistently, it has a compound effect that you will see later on. So for that to happen, you need to do that consistently. So this is for my own self, like, more than for others. I think this is for my own self. So because I'm saying this to myself, that yes, we have to, like, doing this consistently, um, and learning and asking for help is what I would say. And again, networking as well, build your network, like, to learn from others, like, build that network where you can learn from each other, and you can share with each other, and you can uplift each other as well, like, like, you need that motivation. So if someone else is uplifting you, wow, like, I would be like, that would go on my brag document, and I would see that, and I would feel so fulfilled. So little things help. So these would be my few things that I would share.
I love this so much. Thank you. These are great parting words of wisdom. Well, thank you so much, Parveen, for geeking out with me today. Y'all don't forget to subscribe and be sure to check the show notes for additional resources and to connect with us and our guests on social media. Until next time,
Peace out and geek out. It was amazing.
Geeking Out is hosted and produced by me, Adriana Vilela. I also compose and perform the theme music on my trusty clarinet. Geeking Out is also produced by my daughter, Hannah Maxwell, who incidentally designed all of the cool graphics. Be sure to follow us on all the socials by going to bento.me/geekingout.